Are you tired of people always telling you what you want to hear and not what you need to hear? Me too. Are you ready to actually do something about it? Hi, I'm Loren Lahav, and for the past 30 plus years, I've been blessed to speak and to impact thousands of people around the world. I've shared the stage with the world's top thought leaders, including Barbara Walters, Tony Robbins, Barbara Corcoran, and Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm also a personal development, lifestyle, and business coach, event producer, and entrepreneur with businesses in over 25 countries. I'm a wife and a proud mama to 3 and a bonus mom to 1. Trust me when I tell you, it took me many years of buying into my old story of I'm not enough and lots of grit to finally let go of the BS. So I understand firsthand what it means and what it took. They don't call it the School of Hard Knocks for nothing. This podcast is my way of breaking down the BS filters of what we say, what we do, and how we interact with others. I will be sharing what worked for me, yet more importantly, what didn't work for me. This is a no fluff podcast where we will address real life issues that seem to surface when you least expect it, relationship conflict and breakdowns, and real solutions. I will share from my life experiences and those of other everyday heroes, as well as the world's top experts, are all here to help you grow through the process of letting go and finally expressing your true voice, who you are and what you stand for. In a world of political correctness and living our lives on social media, it's hard to know what is real. And are you taking in so much information but not applying what you've learned? In my life, I always look to the people who understand what I'm going through and are willing to get honest and forthcoming with me to help me grow through these challenges. Trust me, I've had them all, and I'm going to take the time to be as real as possible and get to solutions. I've had financial issues, parenting issues, marriage issues, emotional issues. You know, the list goes on. I've learned from my challenges, I've grown from them, and continue to learn from them. I see them now as opportunities. With this podcast, we're going to tune up our lives. I'll be your cup of espresso to get you through whatever you're going through in your life that's holding you back, to give you that confidence and trust of knowing someone is there to help and guide you. Yet you have to do the work. So strap in, hang on tight, and let's get real. I am beyond excited. I think I say that all the time, but I really am beyond excited. I think you and I are both beyond excited every moment of the day. With this woman, before I even, got on the call, I think about what do I love about each of the people that I'm going to bring on to the podcast. And when I met this woman, I knew that she was going to be in my life forever. I don't know how much of the story she's going to share, but Dr. Renaisa Anthony, this woman is pure light. And I just want you all to know that today we are recording on a very special day, which is Martin Luther King Day. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. A huge inspiration, I know, for all of us. It's really interesting, Renaisa, because I used to say as a little Jewish girl growing up in the South, I used to say, I want people to love me for who I am, not what I am. And it was all that Martin Luther King, just inclusion and just, being true to ourselves. But welcome you and your beautiful babies that are in office time right now. If you're just listening and you can't see, she has 3 beautiful babies and fur babies that are definitely her babies. But she is an OBGYN. I'll have her give a little bit of her background. You're into it all though, but I know that your whole thing is really creating that safe space and that tribe for women and to feel safe, especially in their bodies and in just who they're becoming. So that's why I'm very excited as well that you're going to be a part of the Own Your Worth experience. And I was always, all the years that I've known you, I was like, I gotta bring her in. And then we ran into each other. I'm like, you're in. So tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about what's driving you right now. I know you were just here in Las Vegas at CES. You learned some cool things. You were showing me some really interesting thing. I think you asked one of the robots about having babies. I remember that was really cool what the robot said back to you. But anyway, tell us all about you.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. I think a good place to start is how we met in that journey. I think it was 2016 when I did Life and Wealth Mastery in Marco Island, and I was living what I thought was my best life, right? Like I had almost an endowed position at a major medical center. Everything looked like it should be a life that one would celebrate, definitely a life that many envied, but inside I was miserable. I was like, this makes no sense. I've gone to Harvard, I've gone to University of Chicago, Vanderbilt. I have on paper the credentials that equal success. And I thought by getting all those letters behind my name, by escaping generational cycles of poverty, getting out of Detroit, Michigan, where I was born, to a single mom in one of the poorest zip codes in Detroit, Michigan, that would equal happiness and impact. And there I was, 30 something years old. I'll leave it at that. And I remember coming home from work and I just broke down and started crying. I was just like, this is terrible. God, universe, at the time, it was just God. If this is all you have for me, and this is a cruel joke, you've delivered beyond anything I could have ever asked for in my career, but I have no other part of my life, right? Like I left Detroit, my whole family is still there. I thought that I was going to make an impact by being the doctor. And I came home and everything was just like it was when I left. And for that to cause like this almost midlife crisis, most people are like, I don't understand. You left and came home and everything was the same. Most of my friends who are moms, they were like, I would love to have that, right? They come home, the house is a mess. They can't find something. Who ate my food and who tore this up? And I just cleaned up, pick all these toys up. And for me, nothing was different. I was just like, I'm about to turn 36 years old. And this is not the life I wanted. I was going into work before most things opened. I was leaving work when everything was closed. So something as simple as getting a driver's license renewed or picking up dry cleaning, I just couldn't do. And
Right.
most of my colleagues who were men, they had amazing wives who did all this work, but I didn't have a partner. I was lonely. I was still in that age range where, and I come from the generation where if you're not married and you don't have two kids, by the time you're 35, like you're a loser. And I bought into all of that. And so that night, sadly enough, I thought, I'm done. This is it. And I literally went upstairs in my building and I was going to jump off the roof. And I looked down and thankfully I could see from 3 stories, like, you're not going to end this. You're just going to be maimed for life, right? Like you're going to end up in a wheelchair. And so this isn't going to work. And so my plan was when I get to the medical center tomorrow, I'm going to jump off that roof because that'll make it happen. And the truth is I didn't want to die. I didn't want my life to end. I just knew like I couldn't continue to live the life in the way I was living it at that time. So for the first time in a long time, I got on my knees and I was like, God, please help me, please help me, please help me. My girl is so intuitive. You can hear her whining. And this is just a tangent. Whenever we're watching sad movies, she knows when the sad part is coming. So she's hearing me and she's not whining at anything. She can just shift energy and feel energy like that. So I literally, and I don't know if I ever told you my entry into Tony world, but this is the entry
No, but
point.
it's very interesting what you just shared as well. First of all, I didn't even know that story.
Mhm.
I'm sitting here, I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow. But I know that there's two wonderful ladies that are part of uh, the mastermind that I have together. It's called TLC, True Legacy Collective, and they're doctors, and their biggest thing is that they talk about just burnt out doctors, and especially now, I had to go to a hand surgeon because of a situation. I was there, and I was telling him my dad was not an optometrist, and he goes, when the generation, and help me out because I might be wrong on this. He said anybody who was a doctor from like 1965 to like, I think he said like 2005, like that was a whole different time in the medical field. I mean, you're looking at me like, yes, you're right on. And that the challenges that so many medical professionals are feeling now. Is this something, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
the
know. I hear it more and
burnout,
more than ever before. You know, they can't
I
do what they
feel
really want.
that, I mean, it's interesting because with in our sector, third party payers, so insurance companies came in, and now instead of doctoring, you're doing a lot of administration. You're doing a lot of authorization. In the OB world, for instance, the women that you take care of during their pregnancy, you don't necessarily deliver them. And I knew like it was a new time for me when I'd run into people and they're like, oh my gosh, you delivered my baby. And in my head, I'm like, I have no clue who this person is. And so I'd have to say that, oh, how's the baby? But the likelihood that you'll go into a practice and be seen throughout your pregnancy by the same person and then delivered by that person, those days are over. That's a luxury for people who have almost concierge obstetrics. But going back to that day, Loren, like I literally got on my knees and I was like, help me, help me, help me. And I went to bed. I took 50 milligrams of Benadryl, which should completely knock anybody out. It'll knock a horse out almost. And I woke up every hour on the hour. And the way I know it is it was that long ago. Remember when we used to have those like cable boxes that were huge?
Oh yeah.
In the middle of those cable boxes at the time. So I woke up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and each time it was like Tony Robbins, Tony Robbins. And I wasn't reading any of his stuff. I don't know if I may have subconsciously seen a commercial or something, but at 4 a.m., I was like, what about Tony Robbins? And I got up and I Googled him and it said UPW March 21st through the 25th in London. And here I was in Nebraska. I was like, London? Okay, I feel better today. I can't afford to go to London. It was already the 18th or 17th. I would have had to be there the very next day. So I get to my office and I am feeling a little better. And I had a medical student come and she says, when I am done, I want to be like you, Dr. Anthony. I want to do a TED talk. I want to do all these things that you've done. And of course, as women, we can pull it together. You know, I had my little white coat. I was my doctor stuff like, oh, you're going to do more things than I have. And I'm so proud of you. And she left my office and I was on the floor like bawling. And I have like almost a corner office. I had the second largest office. And here I am again with a life that other people would envy. I was on the floor bawling and I said, I can't afford not to go. So I bought this ticket. It's a whole story of how everything aligned for me to actually go. But for a moment, I thought like, am I having a nervous breakdown? Am I manic? Because I'm about to get on a plane and go to Florida to go to London and do all these things. And basically I had an intervention with Tony, and what was almost a midlife crisis turned into a midlife celebration. I signed up for Master University. You and I crossed paths. And when I first met you, I can tell you I was a little reluctant about Life and Wealth because that, of course, is the event that Tony is not there. But you were there and you rocked it. And I saw this amazing like spirit and woman in these platform heels. And I was like, I can't believe I second guessed even coming. And when I jumped that pole, because if anyone has done it, or long story short, you have to climb this. How tall is that pole?
60 feet.
60-foot pole. And I don't like heights. I only fly like literally before I did my Tony events, I had to take Ativan to fly because I was so afraid of flying. I haven't taken it since then. But we're talking about a woman who flies because I have to. I got up that pole, and the last step, there's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to step onto. You just have to step up. So I'm frozen, like basically like a koala bear hugging onto this thing. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And you're at the bottom. You're like, step up. Step up. You're a vagina warrior. You're a vagina warrior. Step up. Step up. Oh, I have you recorded. You cursed at me. You're like, you're a vagina warrior. Step up. I was like, I'm a vagina warrior up there. I'm a vagina were. You can hear the men at the bottom like, what did she say? What did she say? Oh, yeah, you're what did she say? The men wouldn't say it. And I stepped up and there I was on the top of this pole and boom, I jumped for, the handle. I missed the handle. But without you down there cheering me on, I would not have taken that step. And that's what you do. You have
I've always been, and I love to cheer people. And I was telling you even before this interview, right? Like that, I just love to cheer people on. I'm like, you can do it. Like whatever that it is, we got this. I love that beautiful angel that walked into your office. Tell me a little bit about her, the girl that came in that said, I want to be like you.
So part of my job is at that time was with students. So I was the youngest faculty administrator. I ran our Center for Health Disparities, now Health Equity. My job was to care about everything in terms of health equity. I've always been partial to mamas and babies. And so part of that job was conducting research, running that center, seeing patients, and teaching students. And one of the things that I love, and the only thing really I could say I miss about academic medicine, were the future health professionals that I trained. And so to know that so many of those women and men that I trained in medical school, nursing school, public health school, because we're a medical campus, so I taught everybody, that they've gone out and they are these like equity champions, and now we're colleagues. I literally ran into a young lady at the National Medical Association, and she's like, oh my gosh, I was the research assistant for Dr. Anthony. And she's like, now I'm like the chief of pediatrics and I'm doing a fellowship. Those things make me the most proud and happy. Although I'm like, I haven't aged beyond 35, so I don't know how you've gone on to do all those things. Because for me, I'm stuck in this time bubble, right?
I love you. So talk about a little bit. We were talking before about, you were like that Harvard does not equal happiness. We also shared a little bit about, just what is happiness. And you used the line like you had everything that should make you happy. Tony always uses the example, the science of achievement but the art of fulfillment. Talk about that fulfillment now in your life. And what was it? Was it that defining moment that's like that's it? Something's got to change. It's funny that you said like, I'm not going to jump because I'm not going to be successful at it, right? Like, it's great. I think Kathy Buckley says, there's some things you're glad you're not successful at. And so you knew what's happened to you? What's shifted?
Oh, everything's happened since being in the world. It brings me to the key that's really changed my life about proximity is power. And my proximity was, I would say 99.5% other physicians at that time.
Yeah.
And we are perfectionists, which I've learned is one of the lowest standards for success. But we're perfectionists, and it creates a world where some of my mentors, people I looked up to, like I won't name the name, but in my field, it was you're pregnant, you operate until pretty much the day you give birth, and then you're celebrated if you're back within 3 days, right? And now, after learning the art of fulfillment versus the formula for success, is that type of lifestyle and that type of proximity was not conducive to really allowing my soul to shine and to do my soul work. What changed, I think, was that day. It was just, I was approaching my 36th birthday, and I just thought, like, I'm successful. That's it. I have a success story, but my definition of success was more. Like, where is my fulfillment? And I didn't have, I'd read all these different books, but I didn't have something that was a streamline, put that line and string through the pearls. And when I went into the Tony world, that was the difference. It was all the different things that I learned, which is the truth, just stated in different ways by different people. Once I could understand like the 6 human needs, it was, oh, I don't feel like I'm contributing in the way I would want to when it comes to patients. And I don't feel I'm growing. I feel like I'm dying. And those 6 human needs, where the two are the spiritual and the soul ones that really give you fulfillment and happiness. Once I understood that and tapped into that, that's what started to transform for me. So I entered that world in 2014. 2016 is when I was just like, I got to experience the Platt experience in year, and I met some amazing people. Talk about proximity. Not one other doctor, but these people changed my life when you taught me. Gosh, when I think about it, it was you. When you have these ideas of what money means and what are the narratives you tell yourself about money, I'll never forget you said, the more you have, the more you have to give. Mm-hmm. And that changed everything. I wrote a check to help feed America, and I was stretching. Like, it was like, pick a number and then stretch beyond it. And I was like, okay, I care about mamas and babies, but if we're going to feed mamas and babies, that's how I'll justify this. And I wrote the check. And right next to me, I watched someone else write a check, and that check was doggone 1,000 times what I had. I don't know, what are these people doing? I thought I was successful, right? I'm a doctor. That's what people strive to be.
Right.
How are they writing these kinds of checks? And it's to feed people.
Yep.
Got to know them, it became very clear. Entrepreneurship is the way to go. I've always been an innovator. I've always been a pioneer. And out here in the Bay, I've learned that it's a great word called a disruptor. Like, how can you change the status quo? And being in that environment with folks who told me, they were cheering me on, step up, vagina warrior. When they said to me, they're like, look, we don't even have all the degrees you have. If you focus on value, if you focus on delivering something to folks that they need and they want, you literally can impact more women and earn more by creating your own thing. Yep. I didn't believe it at first. It took a couple of years in that space. And come 2017, I resigned from my position and retired. And I can tell you, my university, they were like, oh, she drank that Kool-Aid at the Tony Robbins. You have a pretty much guaranteed job for the rest of your life, and you're leaving to go start your own thing. What? She drank that Kool-Aid. And I started Momentum Park, where moms come first and every moment matters. I haven't looked back. I love it. I make more than I did then. And most importantly, the impact that I make is profound. I wake up now, I'm happy in terms of the success professionally, but I've also found that art of fulfillment and the joy internally, where for probably the good 2/3 of my life, I never had it. And then this last third, thanks to proximity is power, thanks to folks like you and the Tony family, I've been able to experience joy and find my bliss.
Oh, well, I love, there's so much to unpack there, right? There's a ton to unpack, but I love what you said about, one, that's what, for me, it's all about the, who you surround yourself with is who you become, right? So choose wisely. And I think that as we're here in the first quarter of the new year, even though people say that they're going to make those shifts, you've got to kind of evaluate what Keith Cunningham always says, you can't track what you don't measure. And I was sharing, I think in the podcast before, that I get off the phone with somebody, or if I'm with somebody, I kind of go, how did I feel after I got off the phone with them? Or how did I feel after my time with them? And I give myself a number, like if I felt like ecstatic, or if I felt drained, or if I felt stressed, and it gives me that kind of barometer of kind of reevaluating that tribe that I'm attracting, right? It's amazing now because I feel so extraordinary. I got off the phone last night. It was supposed to be a 30-minute call. I think it was a 2.5-hour call that we ended up having. But, just because what's happening, like you said, energetically, we're just starting that vibe, the whole thing, your vibe attracts your tribe. So make sure you get yourself around some good vibes. And you were definitely that. So talk a little bit about, and I'm sure there's some doctors or people that everybody knows a doctor. What gave you when you had the courage to say, that's it, that's it. I can take all of this beautiful knowledge, because you've still taken the knowledge that you have, you just have repackaged it, in a way that gives you more fulfillment. Could you share about that?
Sure. I've got another baby here. Come on. What an amazing life. Mommy would be in clinic right now, and I get to talk to the awesome Loren. This is King Louie. He's actually our chief happiness officer for Momentum Park. Say, I travel with my mommy, and you will actually be there at Own Your
Like I
Worth.
said, everybody thinks I look like a Yorkie. So now that I've got my bangs as of a couple days ago, I guess the king and I really look like each other now.
Look at your twin.
Look, twins now.
I love the bangs. Gives you that like
Like
vintage
I did
look.
I did it just, ooh, that's, I'll take that. I'll take that. Did it just, but like, it's something that you said. It was that it's interesting because it has to do as well with you deciding to go to that Tony event, right? Like you said, that's it. You have to make a decision quickly. I was there getting my hair blown out. And I go, I think I need to do bangs. And then the guy's like, when? I go, now, right? Like, why not now? Like, what if I'm going to overthink this? And as you can tell, I do messy. Like, I like my house clean, but I do messy. I just say yes and I just go for it. I'll figure it out along the way. But talk about what someone can do who maybe has all of those degrees. Maybe it's not even just a medical degree, but has all of the things behind their, the letters behind their name, but still just isn't happy and wants to be a little bit of a disruptor, or really does want to like sees the wounds and the challenges that are out there and wants to add more value. What advice would you give them?
I'm super excited about Own Your Worth, right? Like we have this tribe of women that are coming together in Vegas, and I would say you can do it virtually. I mean, that wasn't an option for me back in 2014 when I jumped and didn't even know what I was doing. I burned my boats. Mm-hmm. And I said, no more, not another day. I cannot continue to live my life like this. And so I was looking for something. I'd been starving for something, and it pretty much popped up in my wheelhouse. It was there. And so I would say it's going to sound a little foo-foo, but when you are searching, like somehow, some way, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is conspiring on your behalf. And if you open your eyes, it'll be there. And so whether it's a conference that you're like, hey, this seems interesting, but get rid of that but, or as I've learned, like when you say but, like literally take your finger and put it by your butt so you can change that to an and. Get into a different environment, whether you're in medicine or you're in something else. You have to surround yourself with people who think a little differently than you do. And as you're presented these opportunities, to say yes and find a way to make that yes an absolute reality. I got on that plane, and you don't have to go to London. I literally got on a plane to London. I didn't have the money, but everything conspired for me. I literally had to call 2 credit cards. I had points. The lady was like, we don't combine these points on cards. And I said, look, lady, I'm having, I think, a midlife crisis, and I'm trying to call Tony Robbins. And she says, oh my gosh, I read all his stuff. Okay, don't tell anybody. I'm not supposed to do this. She put it together, and literally short of 1,000 points, I had enough for a ticket to fly to London.
Wow.
When I called the hotels, everything was sold out. The Aloft Hotel is connected to, I don't know what the center's called.
The Excel Center.
The Excel Center.
Yeah.
I called them and I said, look, I just made this decision because, again, I have less than 36 hours to get to London to do this, which is why I thought, am I bipolar and I have mania? Like, what is going on? And my friends were like, no, if you were manic.
I have a question. Was that your voice that was saying that, or do you think that was all the noise around you? Do you really think that was your voice? I'm just curious. Like, do you?
It was like my own voice, because the part of like bipolar is when you start doing manic things, like you're not thinking about it, you're just moving. And when I look back, of course, it was a mania. My friends and other colleagues are like, it's not manic because you know what you're doing, right, but it is a little out there. And that ties into what you're asking. You have to take massive action. And that was my massive action, like find a way to get there. And when I was there, the only thing I ended up paying for out of pocket was the ticket, because everything else aligned for me. I had enough points at the Aloft. She's like, we're sold out, but we always save some rooms for our platinum guests. I was a platinum member at the time. I had just enough points for the hotel. So now I have a hotel that's connected to the event. All I had to do was get on the plane. And I got on the plane. It's the last time I took Ativan. And as we bumped around trying to get to London, I was like, well, if I die, I was going to jump off of a building. And that's what I could say. I jump off a building. I was going to jump off a building. And I bought the ticket and I said, for this kind of money, I better meet this man. And when he came out, I was like the first or second person he called on. I didn't even raise my hand. He was like, why are you here? It's like, me. And it changed everything. But it wasn't until 2.5 years later that I started to see and believe that there was something else that I was called to do. So the first thing to do is you don't have to quit what you do overnight. For some people, everybody has to be in different ecosystems, but really immerse yourself in those environments where people are committed to growing, committed to contributing, because there are a lot of places where you can grow, but it's a me, take.
Yep.
And that's just not the environment that Loren creates, or the new family that my chosen family creates. It's really about like, we are achieving and we are gaining basically so we can serve. And that resonated so well with me and my personality and why I chose to be a doctor in the first place.
Yeah.
But
I love that you said something really, really important is you don't have to quit what you're doing as you're making the progress. I mean, you gave yourself that grace time. I've used the example before. I remember Tony years ago, 100 years ago, because, you know, I've been around 100 years in that environment. But I remember back then, you know, the events were not the size that they are. And Tony did the events because he loved the events, but that he made his money basically with QVC. Like he had to fly to QVC, you know, he had to do that so that he could do what he loved. So it gave you got to build your company and build your business while you still, you know, had that income coming in from your job, right? Even though, am I right about this? It wasn't maybe giving you all the fulfillment, but as you were building and as you were in the proximity of people, you got more confidence, like, I got this, and that you didn't have scarcity about everything. That's why you were able to, I mean, help me out here of what.
Yeah, it's a process. I think when I first entered into the Tony world, it had absolutely nothing to do with career or success. I knew, or I thought at that time from a career perspective, I was successful, right? I was reminded of that every day. When you have a student that comes in, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be like you. I want to do a TED Talk. I want to be like an administrator. And you're thinking like, why am I not happy? Like, what is wrong with me? I should be happy. I'm earning 6 figures. And when I applied to medical school, I still have the FAFSA forms. My mom made $12,800 that year with 3 kids. And here I was earning 6 figures, and I'm the youngest, only woman, and definitely only person of color in this major institution. And I have access to the chancellor, the presidents are calling me. And I just was not fulfilled. And I didn't know that was the word. I just knew like, I'm not happy. This can't be it. And so I found something that could potentially help. That was the first step. I didn't know 2-3 years later, I'd be looking to create my own thing. That was because I immersed and I played full out in the environments. And I started to see other people and I met folks like you. And I was like, look at how many people she's reaching and look at her joy. And she's been doing this for quite some time. I met other folks who could, to my face, be like, I don't have all those degrees, but I'm watching them play full out front row with their whole family. Their kids were there, their partners were there. And they talked about how many lives they were saving, maybe in a different sector. Like, here's a great example. I loved laser tag. That was my thing one year I was doing it. And I ran into like my partner, and they were the ones who wrote this big check. And I just asked, I said, what do you do? Like, what business are you in? And they're like, oh, we design laser tag rooms. And it never crossed my mind, like, here I am playing and shooting things, but someone had to design that experience.
Right.
That's what they do. They design those experiences. They design those experiences. And then, do you know Patty Glenn?
I don't think so.
If you saw her, you know her. I met Patty, and I think she's probably one of the people who really changed it for me, because she looked like me. She was a lawyer. And basically through her multiple plat years with Tony, she started basically something that's completely different and out of her wheelhouse. She and her husband, they bought properties, flipped those properties, and then basically sold the contracts to the government to offer housing in transitional housing. So here she was doing these amazing things, helping people in transition. And I remember asking her, what's the most that she's brought in? And when she told me, I was like, I work an entire year to bring that in, and you bring that in a month? And she was like, yeah, on average, sometimes we do more, sometimes we do less. And she talked about the impact she's able to make in the community, but also with her family. And she came from a similar background than I did. And that's when I got like the bug. And she's like, you know what? You really, really need to consider starting your own thing, and you'll see you're going to be happier. You're going to be this, but that's 2.5 years later. It was,
Right.
it was playing full out into
And it was
the
all those seeds that were being planted from the people that you were meeting to give you, right? It was like it's interesting because I was just talking about that sometimes we want it so bad, but we want it like to happen right like 30 seconds ago, right? Versus like being patiently persistent, I always say as well. And my friend Jeff, I don't know if you know Jeff Roberti, he says, money is just a reflection of how many people that you've helped. And I'm like, well, then I want to make a shitload of money, right? Like, because I want to like help those maybe. I love something else that you said, and I'm smiling about it because you've said it several times, and I don't even know if you realize how many times that you've said it. You've said about the importance of being in the front row. When I just saw you, right? We were in the front row. Talk about what that front row means to you. What being in the front row means to you about learning.
That's so interesting because that's how I was in all my educational pursuits. Even in med school, high school, I was always in the front row. When I had to make the decision, I remember, and I keep going back to London because that was kind of the pinpoint where things started to shift for me. There were two options. There was general admission, and then there was like the equivalent of what Diamond Premier is now. It was either up in the front or way in the back because everything in the middle was gone. And that was the greatest gift because had it been something in the middle, I would have chosen the middle. I said, I'm not going to be way in the back. And again, I was going to jump off a plane, so your money doesn't matter. It was in pounds. And I was like, I don't even want to know how much this is in dollars. So when I pressed that button, that's when I said, for this kind of money, I better meet this man. Being in the front, playing full out made a difference between me being called on and me having that 30-40 minute intervention that literally transformed that midlife crisis into a celebration, where I've never taken medications again to fly, where I went home and I wrote a grant literally in a day. You know, those like hour, 1 hour for power or 30 minutes to thrive, whatever it was back then that we were doing. I literally sat and I wrote a grant in an hour and a half and it got funded.
Wow.
So being in the front row, I continued after that, no matter what I do. And don't tell anybody, I just went to go see Babyface with my girlfriends. It was her mom's surprise 75th birthday. We go see Babyface. They bought tickets way in the back, literally at the top. And my girlfriend was like, well, where are you going? I said, to the front. And she's like, how are you going to get down there? I was like, I don't know. I'm always in the front. And literally, I just got some concessions, walked straight past security, and sat in a seat. And there I was taking pictures. Baby
But
face.
it's that certainty. It's that resolve. I think it's the thing with everything that I think the message that's really coming through, you know, is that the power of really making a decision. And, you know, I've seen Tony for so many, you know, years that he felt your energy. He felt that you were hungry. He felt that there was, you know, that, like you said, like you didn't put your hand up, but he could tell you were all in, right? And people know when you're all in, and people know also when you're just kind of dilly-dallying around. So I think that why I'm so excited to have you on at the beginning of the year is that you've got that resolve, you've got that decision to go, let's do this. People need us now more than ever. So talk a little bit about about your amazing tribe that you have. I feel very honored to just, you know, you invited, you brought like I am cards for your girls, and you like, we want to support them however we can, but talk a little bit about your tribe, if you would.
Yeah, before you do that, something came to mind when you said what does it mean when you play in the front row?
Mm-hmm.
And there are different sections in the front row. And what I've learned and what has made a difference for me is play full out where you're going. I have brought so many people to Tony Robbins, and I've got like platinum friends who have platinum guests or VIP. And even when they're in the back, I'm like, come on up here, come sit with me. And they're like, no, I don't want them to say anything, or no. And I'm like, what? Like, you have a VIP or a platinum seat. You want to sit in the back? And I realized that everybody sees themselves in different places in the room. I've always seen myself that where I belong, even if I could afford it or not, was going to be in the front of the room. So you should always be sitting. And I know the folks who are listening to this, like, you're front row kind of people. Get as close as you can to where you belong in the future and where you see yourself going. And that's probably a better fit to how I'm always like, no, I got to be in the front. That's where you learn the most. That's where people are playing full out. And most importantly, that's where I've gotten the inspiration and the vision of what's possible and where I can go.
I love that. I love that. And you know, okay, I was going to ask you another question about the front row. I love this whole front row.
Okay. But remind me to go back to the like
I have a question about the front row though, because you've seen this at events, whether it's Tony event or other events, right? When you're in the front row and you've made an investment to be in the front row, meaning to play full out, right? Like I know that an event that I went to, Jeff Roberti, I go back to him. He always sits in the front row. He's the top person in the history of network marketing and all network marketing companies. He always sits in the front row. He was the very first platinum partner that ever signed up for Tony. There's a reason why. Like, I want people to hear the power of when you're all in with something for yourself. How do you feel about when people have a front row but don't show up?
I'm like, thank you for the seat. I can be closer.
Yeah, right? No, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's a great thing, but I'm just curious, you know, I mean, how many, especially when things are, how is that shown? I think you have so much appreciation because of where you came from. Like, you have really used that to say, man, not everybody gets this opportunity and I'm all in. Like, how has your growing up, your mom, everything influenced how you show up? Because you show up, like, I was exhausted just following you on your lives at CES. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's freaking still there, right? I mean, it was exhausting. I just got to tell you, it was exhausting following you. But what does it mean to you? I really want people to walk away with going all in.
It means everything. The reason I play full out is, number one, I'm intentional about where I spend my time. So you're not going to see me showing up at places or investing in places, or even when I get invitations. If it's not a place that I know this is where I belong and I'm going to be able to play full out, I'm not going. Yep. Free or not, I'm not going. Secondly, is that I'm not just going for myself. One of the things I love about being a founder and the founder of Momentum Park, where moms come first and every moment matters, and people say, what do you love most about it? And I say, I get to create a culture with these amazing young women now, and creating a culture that's conducive to those women and their families. Secondly, I love that I can show up and just be real. For so much of my life and my career, it was like, put a suit on. Hi, I'm Dr. Renaisa Anthony. I had to change my voice. It was just like, what do I need to conform to be? And now I get to be in a space where I just get to be me. Like, if I'm not your cup of tea, that's fine. Go get your coffee where you need it to be. And so the tribe that I'm creating is about authenticity. It's about being genuinely who you are. And when I go to these events, I'm not going for myself. Yep. I'm going because there's so many moms and so many women that we serve that will never on their own, in the current state that they're in, be in a room like that. Yep. So how do I take as much of that with me so it can be translated to the women that we're serving, so that one day they can see themselves in those rooms? And most importantly, incrementally, just like it happened for me, they can take those steps that will eventually put them in those rooms. So that's why you see, I play full out, because it's not for me. It's for the women we serve. It's for my grandparents who came from Arkansas, It's from my grandfather, who never got a passport or could even leave the world. Funny story, when we had that Iraq war, I was in Brazil for my 25th birthday. And my grandfather, I called him. This is before, people had cell phones, and I was on the phone, and he said, "Oh, I just want to make sure you're safe. And, with the war." And I said, "Granddad, I'm very, very far from where all that's happening. I'm in Brazil, and I'm probably safer than you are." And he said, "Well, I didn't see that on the TV. I said, "It's a different continent, Granddaddy." And then I just said, it doesn't matter, because for him, he didn't have that context. He came out of Arkansas. He migrated with my grandmother to Flint. They worked, whoever your parents and grandparents are, my grandfather was probably on that assembly line putting that car together. And for him, what made him so proud was that he had a granddaughter that was a doctor. And when he was in his end of life care, sadly, because of medical mistake, one of the things that I'm most proud of, I was able to make sure that he had that respectful end of life care. And when he did pass away, when I got to meet all his doctors, they're like, "Oh, it's you. He always said, my grandbaby's a doctor. My grandbaby's a doctor." And so I do these things because without my grandparents, without the story, as you know, on this day for Martin Luther King, what civil rights leaders went through, the life that I live wasn't something that was even possible for people who look like me, let alone definitely not women, as a 1955. It was that recent ago. So I do not take these opportunities for granted. I take these opportunities and I play full out, because I know the price that was paid for me to get in that room. And it wasn't just what I put on a credit card.
Well, that's a mic drop right there. I don't think we need to say much. That's a definite mic drop. And just so much gratitude and appreciation. I love that you have, and I have so much for you. My final question, because I ask everybody this, is what's one thing that you do every day to stay true to yourself?
Well, I have, let me see if I can show you. They're in their office. There's number one. It's okay. Number two. It's not showing up well.
Three's there together.
1, 2, and 3. So the one thing is I wake up with these amazing creatures called dogs that are some of the most forgiving, loving beings. And they have taught me about unconditional love. And so when I see them every morning, it's how I commit to showing up in my most authentic and genuine self, because it equals longevity. I plan to be here for these kiddos. They live 15 to 20 years. So in 20 years, I'll be 66. And I plan to be able to walk, hike, and do everything I can just as fervently as I do now. And that helps me be true to who I am, because they teach me about love, they teach me about gratitude, and they give me a reason to be grateful. And so I found my bliss by being a fur parent. Everyone's bliss is a little differently, but once they came into my life, and I keep adding every year, who knows, I'm going to officially be the dog lady of the community. I have found a bliss that I've known unlike any other. And so they are my why, they are my reason, and they give me that mommy fix that I needed. And then all the other mommy fixes I get are from serving the moms and multiple moms across the nation that we touch through Momentum Park.
And how can people find out more about your organization? Where do they go?
Yeah, momentumpark.org. Pretty simple.
Well, I adore you. I cannot wait to be with you in just less than just a couple weeks. We're just a couple weeks away. And you were just a true gem. And I love my vagina warrior. You were just the best. So
love you so much. We're going to rock it in Vegas.
And I love that you said, that's the truth, right? Like, who can we help? Who can we serve by us just showing up full out and play full out. So let's give those babies a hug.
Twin. Your twin's going to be there. I'm bringing the king. He'll be with me.
Yay! Okay, my twin. Bye. How awesome was today? Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and invite your friends to join as well. I'm here for you with fabulous content, great guests, and lots of giveaways. To learn more of how I have taken what I've learned, applied it to my life, helped others find their true voice, text TRUE to 26786, which will give you my top tune-ups and a complimentary 15-minute discovery call with one of our coaches. And remember, keep in touch with me on Instagram at I am Loren Lahav, Facebook Loren Lahav Official, Clubhouse Loren Lahav. Make sure you text TRUE, TRUE, to 26786. Text TRUE, TRUE, to 26786. And remember to always stay true to the amazing person you are.